Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MC Commute. I am Michael Gilbert, the host of this week's episode, and today is going to be a great day, and that's because we get to ride motorcycles. And for today's episode, that will be the 2020 Royal Enfield INT650, as it is known here in the United States, or the Interceptor as it is elsewhere around the world. We got a lot to talk about. Why don't we hit the road? All right, guys, the 2020 Royal Enfield Interceptor, or INT650, I've already got it all screwed up. The INT650 as it's known here in the United States, the Interceptor as it's known elsewhere around the world. Obviously, quick things we got to knock off. You have the air oil cooled 648cc parallel twin engine, and then you got the twin shocks out back. You got this nice swept exhaust, 18-inch wheels front and rear. But man, this is a good looking motorcycle, just a classic British roadster looking bike. You got the teardrop shaped fuel tank, just the simplicity of it, and along with that fuel tank, check out this paint job, this sweet, I think this is called the Baker Express paint job, as Royal Enfield calls it. Really neat looking motorcycle, diamond quilted seat pattern. I think Royal Enfield crushed it. Just super simple. I think that they said that this is inspired by the old California surf days of riding down to the beach and just the sunshine and the glory. This one takes it. I think they crushed it with this one. Just simple, fun, good looking motorcycle. Why don't we get on this thing? Let's go for a ride. All right, guys, let's fire this bad boy up. Neutral. Let's see what this sounds like, that 648cc. Ooh, yes. Now, we got that 648cc inline parallel twin platform with the 270-degree firing order, which gives it that little rumbling note. It just gives it a little bit of personality. I really enjoy the sound and feel of that motorcycle. Air oil cooled 648cc parallel twin engine, 270-degree firing order. It's got a secondary balancing shaft that just makes this motorcycle very, very pleasant to ride, super smooth with very little vibrations. Very little vibrations felt through the handlebar, the controls, the foot pegs. Just a very well running motorcycle with crisp fueling. What Royal Enfield has done with the whole balance of that parallel twin platform, the minimal vibrations, the crisp fueling, and just pleasant ride down the road, really lends itself to a less experienced novice rider. The approachability, the rideability, and the user friendliness really I think is attractive to someone looking for just a simple do-it-all machine that still packs a punch of entertainment. Obviously, you got the 270-degree firing order that gives it a nice little throaty note. Yes. And definitely a punch off of the corners and off of stoplights. You know, this thing obviously has modest power figures. I dynoed it. It had 42.2 horsepower, roughly around, I want to say, 6,100 RPM, and about 38 foot-pounds of torque on the in-house motorcyclist dyno. But I think you got to look past all the figures, because this motorcycle is really entertaining to ride. Very approachable, as I say, really linear flat torque curve that offers a lot of flexibility in gear choice, while still getting you down the road plenty fast. Not to mention, this Royal Enfield has a slick shifting 6-speed gearbox And kudos to Royal Enfield for designing a gearbox with really evenly well-spaced gear ratios. I never really find myself in between gears. I feel like every gear kind of has its proper place. First gear gets you off of the light just enough and gets you moving. You don't feel like you have to make such an awkward shift as you get accelerating away from that light. But then the rest of the gears, they feel like they have their place in cruising down the highway, or we're gonna sneak through these guys. Oops. You know, the RPM feels adequate in just about every situation, and not to mention it's really smooth. Like I said, kudos to Royal Enfield. It's a very slick shifting transmission that's aided with a slipper clutch for downshifts. Let's take a couple downshifts here. Super smooth deceleration. I love this bike. I know that, you know, it maybe doesn't pack the most performance like you might find in a super sport lightweight bike or lightweight naked, but it's just damn entertaining because of the character it has. Really enjoy this bike. Now we gotta talk chassis. Royal Enfield has partnered, actually they purchased the legendary UK frame builder in 2015, Harris Performance, and they in conjunction built this frame, this double cradle frame for the Interceptor and the INT650, as well as the INT650's brother, the cafe-styled Continental GT, that shares the same frame, the same engine, but obviously sees a little bit different styling. I think the fuel tank is a little bit different as well. But anyways, paired with Harris to build that frame, you got a 41 millimeter conventional fork up front with twin shocks out back with 5-stage preload adjustment. And man, I have to say, this INT650 is just a very pleasant ride down the road. I think handling is very neutral, yet surprisingly very sporty. I want to say that the geometry numbers are something like 24 degrees of rake and 106 millimeters of travel, which is actually quite sporty and lends itself to quick handling back to back and through the corners, while still remaining really neutral. The actual ride down the road is very pleasant, as I have said. I think, you know, it has softer spring rates and softer damping characteristics that really lend itself to small bump compliance and just cruising down the road. That said, I think that the INT650 settings struggle slightly to absorb big hits, you know, bottom outs, hitting a large bump. I can feel the shock hit the bottom of the stroke, even with the preload adjusted. So I would think that if I were to buy this motorcycle, I might put some stiffer springs on it or have the suspension redone. But overall, really well-balanced motorcycle with a ton of small bump compliance. If you're cruising around town on nice roads, you're gonna want nothing more. In my opinion though, I would like to have a little bit, as these roads in California sometimes get a little bit beat up and subject these bikes to more big hit situations. Hearing that exhaust note never gets old. I love this. I love it. Now, obviously, this is the standard, more do-it-all machine of the two 650 twins that Royal Enfield produces. Not so cafe racer, aggressive positioned motorcycle. This is a more standard. You get the upright tubular handlebar with the bolt-on crossbar that offers just a really nice reach to the grips. I find myself really comfortable, very relaxed. Same with the foot peg placement. I have to say, I don't ever really get cramped. I think for ripping around town and kind of just a comfortable ride, I think they really struck gold. And that begins too with the 3.6 gallon teardrop fuel tank. It puts you in a nice position, and the overall comfort of that seat back there is adequate. I wouldn't say that it's the most comfortable in the world. I think for short stints you're going to have no complaints, but at the same time, if you're going to do anything longer than 30-40 miles, it is a little bit soft, and it does kind of start wearing on your tailbone pretty quickly. It's kind of the name of the game with what Royal Enfield has done, just very neutrally balanced in all regards and very approachable. And if we're talking approachable, we gotta talk Royal Enfield's approachable price. The model we are testing here is $5,999. Now that's with the Baker Express paint job, the solid fuel tank colors. I want to say that you can get them for $5,799. Like, man, seriously, how can you beat that cost? Not to mention, and I do not want to forget this, you get a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty, and God forbid, you also get roadside assistance when you buy either of the Royal Enfield parallel twin platforms. That's pretty incredible. I think it stands by Royal Enfield's confidence in their production, which I have to say the quality of the INT650 is actually pretty unbelievable considering the cost. We had one of these at the magazine last year that we put a ton of miles on, and I've been doing quite a few on this model as well, and I've had no issue with any sort of reliability on this INT650. I think Royal Enfield has just built a solid, stout motorcycle. Yeah, I love riding this thing, man. That exhaust note just sounds good, so good. Actually, when I was trying to shoot my intro here, a gentleman had to come up and he said, "Man, I haven't seen one of these things in years. How old is it?" I said, "Man, it's 2020. No way. This bike is a classic styled British roadster that just looks the part, and it sounds so damn good too." All right. Yep. Cruising down the road in third gear, probably about 55 miles an hour, doing about 5,000 RPM. We can go to fourth, save a little bit of fuel economy. We've talked chassis, we've talked engine, we've talked ergonomics. We haven't really talked brakes. We got these Bi-Bray braking system. As I don't know how to say that exactly, but it actually stands for Brembo. It's an Indian subsidiary of Brembo, and they do a fantastic job of slowing down the speed of this little INT650. I'll show you as we get here on the brakes for our next right-hander on the Tustin Ranch Road over here. But you know, the brake power maybe is not the most aggressive initially when you first pull the lever, but it actually comes on strong once you get deeper into the stroke of the lever. Sometimes it feels a little wooden, like I have a hard time understanding what's actually happening at the caliper, but it isn't necessarily a huge ordeal, as these brakes don't offer the stopping power of like a Brembo Stylema Superbike caliper. You're not going to get yourself into trouble by not knowing how much fuel you really have. And not to mention these brakes also come equipped with Bosch ABS, which I have to say I've never really felt kick in. I'm going to sneak by. We got to go. I've never felt the Bosch ABS system kick in through the lever. I've never felt it pulsing in my fingers and hindering my ability to stop. So kudos to Royal Enfield and Bosch for dialing that system in. I think that's a good thing. 470 pounds fully fueled on the motorcyclist scales. I measured that yesterday prior to our episode. Maybe not the lightest motorcycle on the market, but it carries its weight exceptionally well. I'm going to say that. It carries its weight exceptionally well, and hopefully I can show you. We'll get a little bit of clear racetrack or clear road up here going around the roundabout onto the 5 freeway towards the motorcyclist offices. It carries its weight really well. It feels light. It doesn't require a whole lot of bar input or body input to really get the thing on the side of the tire. Speaking of, we have those Pirelli Phantom Sport Comp tires that offer pretty good grip. I'm going to sneak around this guy for you viewers at home. We got to get some time on the edge of the tire. Heck yeah. Really well balanced machine. Oop, you see that little bump? See that little bump? That was, come on, give us a green. We're off to the races. That little bump is kind of exemplary of the soft spring rates and light damping. Obviously this motorcycle took a little bit of a hit there when we went over those bumps, and it just upset the chassis a little bit. So that's what I was meaning when I was talking about I think that Royal Enfield, they've done a good job of soaking up the small bump compliance, but we could probably add a little bit of support for the bigger hits. We're on the Interstate 5, headed to the motorcyclist offices. We were talking about the Pirelli tires. Tires do a good job. I think that they're very well balanced in terms of grip and feel. I don't think that they're necessarily a poor choice, but because you have traditional spoked rims on this INT650, you actually have to run a tube which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I think for the situations we'd put this bike in, you know, like I said, I really enjoy just riding this around town, kind of as a do-it-all, go-getter machine. It might not be a huge deal, but if you were to have a flat or have some sort of mechanical, having those tubes does make it a little bit more complicated to fix your problems. On this little INT650, typically does about 5,000, just under 5,000 RPM in top gear, that being 6th, cruising at highway speeds. It actually looks like we're going to get a little bit of clear freeway right up here, and we'll talk about that. 3.6 gallon fuel tank. On average, I've been seeing high 40 mpg for fuel economy, sometimes over 50. So you could expect, realistically, you could probably expect 150 plus miles to a fuel tank, and as much as 180. I would confidently say you could get 180 miles to a tank if you're riding gingerly or just not wailing on it and really taking in that wonderful exhaust note that we've been listening to. Usually on the California highways, everyone's trying to do 100, 110 miles an hour and run you over every chance they get, but we're doing about 60, 65 miles an hour, cruising at 4,000 RPM. Very pleasant cruise. You know, this motorcycle, unless you're really wailing on it and trying to get that exhaust note out, which sounds rad, you almost lose, like, it is so pleasant and so quiet and so smooth running that sometimes you almost forget and you can't hear that it's running underneath you. Maybe that's the showy RF SR helmet I'm wearing here. I love this helmet, but it's just a very pleasant motorcycle to ride. Very minimal vibrations. Obviously you don't have any sort of fairing up front, so you're going to get a little bit of wind blast going down the highway. The mirrors don't necessarily offer the most range of vision, as you can see, but they're actually pretty incredibly stable and paint a pretty clear picture of what's going on behind you. Obviously up front you got the classic styled, which I love, speedometer and tachometer. Right under the speedometer, you have the fuel gauge. As you can see there, we got about 45 miles on this tank and only one little bar gone, and that is including our dyno runs yesterday on our in-house motorcyclist dyno. So this thing, like I said, gets pretty great fuel consumption. You know, obviously we talked a little bit about that seat. It looks neat. It has that diamond quilted pattern, but it does get a little soft. I can even feel it in my tailbones right now headed down the highway. If I were to buy this motorcycle, maybe I put a little bit stiffer seat on it. Obviously I would be bummed about losing that diamond quilted pattern, but maybe you could find something that looks just like it. Coming up to our final exit, I want to give you one more shot at putting this thing on the side of the tire and decking it. It has a lot of ground clearance on this thing. You can really get leaned over and have total confidence doing it. Obviously the one-piece handlebar gives you a lot of leverage, a lot of control too. Really just confidence inspiring. Like I said, this motorcycle is just so neutrally balanced in every way, and you really have to appreciate it. It might not do fourth gear, third gear. Let's go through here in third. It might not do anything the best. There's probably better performance out there in just about every category, but it does everything pretty damn good, and that's what I really appreciate about this motorcycle, and that's what I'm looking for when I'm trying to find my preferred motorcycle in any category. I don't necessarily want the most performance out of every characteristic or any characteristic. I just want one that does everything well, and the Royal Enfield INT650 does that, and I really appreciate it. Coming up to the wheelie zone, I don't know if I can get this thing. Let's try it. Let's just go for a wheelie, see what happens. Good clutch feel from this bike too, so maybe I can just pop it up. Nope. I don't know. That felt kind of funky. Almost felt like the tire spun a little bit. Anyways, maybe not the wheelie machine of the bunch that we've been on, just a pleasant roadster that I really enjoy. So like I said, I've really enjoyed my time on this bike, and I think that a lot of other people will too. And I think especially for those less experienced novice riders that maybe want to get in without breaking the bank, want the classic styling but still modern day performance, the Royal Enfield INT650 is going to do that. Sure, there might be other motorcycles in the category or in other categories that pack more performance at a similar cost, but I think that this Royal Enfield just does it all pretty well, and not to mention that cost of entry, that affordable cost of entry, $5,999 as this motorcycle, as this test unit sits, but you can get them as cheap as $5,799 in a solid in a solid color scheme. So and please do not forget Royal Enfield's unlimited mileage, 3-year warranty plus roadside service. I really think that that to me is just astounding. I think Royal Enfield is really doing a good job, and they're making a big push at the U.S. market, as other markets as well. And I think that you're going to start seeing a lot more of these Royal Enfields on the road. So, all right, guys, that's it. Royal Enfield INT650, just a wonderful motorcycle to ride. Very pleasant, very neutrally balanced in every regard. That air oil cooled 648cc engine with the 270 degree firing order just gives off a wicked rad exhaust note that is so addicting to get on the throttle. Very neutrally balanced, well handling chassis, good suspension, could add a little bit of support for those big hits. Brakes do a good job of bringing this thing down to a stop, and obviously, as we talked about, astounding price, great services with that warranty. So Royal Enfield INT650, I'm looking forward to spending a few more miles aboard this thing. that's it, guys. Please, if you like this video, be sure to like it, comment. We want to hear from you, and subscribe to the Motorcyclist YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy.